Hi, this is kind of a random how literature can save the world episode, but I've been feeling a little overwhelmed and hopeless lately with just the state in the US, with ICE, with the Epstein files, with voter suppression. Like, honestly, there's just no limit to the things that are distressing right now. And so I reached out to some of the contributors and, in my own personal library to find books that I thought could be useful to all of us right now. I know that there is just a lot of people unemployed, and a lot of that time is spent watching TV or streaming or whatever, when it could be spent gearing up your brain. And I wanted to put together a list of books that are hopeful, that are about resilience, that are about taking action, that are about how to collaborate, how to be a part of a community, but most of all that are hopeful. And so I'm going to start with the books I have, and we're going to go from there. So let's see, I just want to get my list up. Okay, so the first book is this book, The Practicing Stoic. I think this is a really great intro to Stoicism. You don't have to, it's not like a philosophy that you have to be all in on, but it's just a way to cope with reality. It's a lot about resilience. It's a lot about trying to remain emotionally distant from some of the things that are happening so that you can focus and move forward. And this book is really great because in it, the table of contents shows you like, hey, I'm feeling really sad about death right now, or wealth and pleasure, or what does, Marx have to say about virtue or learning. And so these are all sort of categorized with quotes from different prominent Stoics about these things. And it's been really helpful to me to have a source, just a compendium of knowledge at my disposal. And obviously also Meditations is completely accessible. It's probably one of the most accessible philosophy books I've ever read. So you should never be intimidated by any of that stuff. The next book is The Memory Police. This book is by Yoko Ogawa. And it's like a dystopian book, like a la, 1984, where there's a societal, devolution. But it's a lot more modern. I know a lot of times when women read some of the older books, it's kind of funny, right? Like, it's about the collapse of society or whatever, but women are often still objects in those books, not subjects doing anything. It's about a writer who ends up hiding her editor underneath the floorboards of her house, and the idea is that to record what's happening and to be a witness, and how important a writer's work is in that capacity. It's just a good book too. Blindness. A lot of people have read this book. I mean, this is a pretty famous book. It's not just about physically being blind. It's an allegory. It's about society's blindness and turning a blind eye to the suffering of other people. Exit West is a kind of a really fun book, which is weird to say because of what it's about. It's about war and migration, and it's one of the rare books of magical realism for geopolitical violence, which is kind of like an interesting combination. It's sort of the place that I write as well. Okay, Heart Lamp. Look how little this book is. These are not time-consuming books for the most part. It's just a book of stories, right? Set in India, in Muslim India, and it really illustrates gender inequality and resilience in these communities, and written by, I think he was a journalist and a lawyer. I mean, really smart, really nuanced, beautiful stories. Read it. Next. David and Goliath. I talk about this all the time. It's one of my favorite books. Malcolm Gladwell really helped me see that my poverty and the things that I've gone through in my life and the things that many of you have gone through in your lives are not necessarily bad. I mean, obviously they were bad at the time, but in retrospect, they were sort of privileges that, a lot of people don't have the chance to experience, and a lot of perspective that you've learned that other people don't get the chance to learn. And so this book helped me realize how important those experiences were and how I could use them to help other people. Ajax Dilemma. This is a weird one. I bet people are going to be surprised that I put this on the list. Okay, so essentially what happens is there's a decision to be made about who to reward, either Ajax or Odysseus. And they both bring different values to the fight, right? And so the idea is, what values does society want to raise up? What do we want to reward? What do we want to punish? And I think that it really helps you look at those things as decisions. We can decide how we want our society to be. We don't have to just accept how it is right now. We can change it. It can be however we want. It's the social contract, right? So this book really highlights, just like at a micro level, between these two people, one person who's really loyal and dependable and does everything well, and one person who's not as loyal or dependable, but who's very innovative and creative and is sort of an out-of-the-box thinker. Which one do you want to reward? And I think it's a really good book, too. Next, A Nation of Immigrants. Look at this. Look how little it is. I don't think people realize. It's a tiny book. You can read it in a day. And it's not just rhetoric. It has some history, okay? It has historical photographs. It's a good book, and I think it will help us remember what we're all about here, especially in light of the Cato survey that shows that immigrants are really propping up our economy, and that without them, it's much, much worse. There we go. Feminine Mystique. Weirdly, what is this, 1963? 1963. I feel like we have a lot in common with the women of 1963 right now, as all of our rights are being rewound. And it holds up. It's a great book. It's worth reading. Or at least skimming, because this is a fatter one, and I really want you guys to read these books, and so I know that that's intimidating. But it's easy to read. And then I have two other books I want to show you that are legal books, but I think that they help people think a little more critically and help you get around your own biases. So one is also by Ward Farnsworth. He was the first book, The Practicing Stoic, but he wrote this book, The Legal Analyst, and it really just breaks down cognitive biases and how the law tries to counter them. And what I think is really interesting, and they're so easy to read, is that these are also like our own biases in individual conversations with each other. And if you can see the framework that the law tries to impose to try to keep people on track and getting to the truth, then you can start facilitating your own conversations with those same sorts of tricks, I guess. And the other one is the conflict paradox. I read this in my LLM, and it really is about how all conflicts between nations, between people, between children are all the same damn things. They're the same conflicts. There's not that many different kinds, and we read a lot of books, right? So like this isn't the only one I'm relying on for this, but it is a very clear and easy to read book that kind of helps explain how everything fits into these categories and how you can differentiate like the nonsense and the hyperbole from what you need to know. And I also have a ton of other books. So Man's Search for Meaning. Okay, if you haven't read this book, I think every human being should read this book. It's by the Holocaust survivor. He's a psychiatrist, Viktor Frankl. He writes that the primary drives of human beings isn't pleasure, as was thought at the time, but it's actually a search for meaning. And how to find meaning, even the darkest situations, is such a hopeful book. Human Acts by Kang. It's about the Gwonju uprising in South Korea. It's about resistance and political violence and humanity and collaboration. It's a great book. I think you should read it. The Color Purple, I have talked about this on the podcast recently. I never read it because it's challenging at first. There's some depictions of sexual violence that I had a hard time with when I was younger. It's by Alice Walker. It's about resilience, empowerment, the bonds between women helping each other, as well as obviously racism and sexism. And it's probably the best book I've ever read in my whole life. And it makes me really sad that it took me 40 years to get there. Good and Mad. It's by Rebecca, I think, Traister. It's about practical steps that women can do and how they can fuel their anger into something productive and something good and not something destructive. Sister Outsider by Audre Lorde. These are essays, speeches. They're about social problems like everything, sexism, racism. I mean, everything you can think of, LGBTQ issues, all of it. She just easy to digest, easy to understand, easy to identify with essays. Humanly Possible is by Sarah Bakewell. It's about philosophy. It's like where civil rights and philosophy kind of meets. And it's really about how to live and how to live in a society. And it's a great book. Then the Fish Swallowed Him, which is something I have only recently found. It's by Amir Ahmadi Arian. It was about a political prisoner in Iran, and it's a really beautiful book as well. And then I also have tons of suggestions from contributors to the podcast. Invitation to a Beheading by Nabokov. The Little Prince, which is an amazing book. I think everybody's probably read, but we have a really cool pop-up version in my house that I want to get in the bookstore one day. Return of the King, Tolkien. One Day in the Life of Ivan Denisovich. The Gulag Archipelago. Mouse, which is actually a graphic novel. And our contributor, Matt K. Parker, whose episode is going to drop on Friday, he wrote that it's the author's telling of the life of his father and mother as they escape Nazi-occupied Poland. But it's also the author's ongoing attempts to accept the overwhelming ambivalence of human nature by giving us a fully realized, unflinching portrait of his father and all of the contradictions and flaws, which I think is just a beautiful way that Matt's described this book. What Sarah said is that she would recommend pretty much anything by Rebecca Solnit. And her favorite is A Paradise Built in Hell, which Sarah says doesn't sound uplifting, but really is, because it's about how communities can grow stronger in crisis. And then Limitarianism by Ingrid Robbins, about the problem of billionaires and how we could reimagine wealth and push for more equality and equity. And then, Notes from a Foreign Country has been recommended by Hugh Martin, which I have not read, but I'm definitely going to read, and I will put it up in the info too. So those are our recommendations for you right now. There's quite a few. A lot of these, especially the older books, are available on the World Library. There's a couple of online libraries, I forget what they're all called, but they're free. And half the time you can just download the whole PDF of the book. So when I think about A Nation of Immigrants or the Feminine Mystique, all of those are available for free online. Now is the time, right? We have some free time. It's winter. It's feeling kind of sad and exhausting. And I think some of these books could help. So that's my 2 cents. And you'll hear from Matt K. Parker on Friday. Thanks.
Thank you so much for listening. Until next time, and in the words of my daughter,
let's hip hop our way out.